in that first round.
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be defensive line, John. I mean, if I had to predict right now what those two picks will be, I would say wide receiver, defensive line, and not necessarily an edge rusher. I mean,
Got a Wednesday get together here on Birds 365 with McDonald and McMullen. Joining the fray is our buddy from Philly Mag, 33rd Team. You read him forever in the Daily News. Paul Domowitch jumps aboard with us here on Birds 365. All right, Domo, your charge, your stead, what you're doing these days has changed over the last year and change. This more exciting, less exciting, more work, more relaxed? How are you prepping for an Eagles draft in your position?
well, it's more. It's a broader job. It's covering the whole league. I've got more stories I can pursue, rather than kind of focusing just on the Eagles with three other guys, where you had to stop, be careful. You guys weren't, that we weren't bumping into each other on story ideas. So this has been kind of cool. I like it, and I'm able to kind of be my own master. So I like that. And guys, I got to apologize ahead of time. You're probably going to hear some hammering during this interview because of some work that's getting done around the house. So
What are you used to it?
I won't be offended if you cut me off and say, yeah, we got to go. We got another guest.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
sweat it,
lawnmower
Damo.
season too. It's leaf blowing season, Damo. So I get that constantly around my house. It's like nonstop from 8 till 4.
Yeah.
It's that time of year. You've taken your draft preview, the 33rd Team, and you're still working with Ben Pinnell, who does excellent work. Is Ben still working for the Eagles? Is he coming back?
He still does the podcast for the Eagles on their website. He's working for CBS he's a producer with their number 2 team, I believe, Charles Davis and Ian Eagle. And then he also works the draft with Daniel Jeremiah. So
he's got about 15 hats. So he does a great job, and you guys do a great job.
Thanks. I sit down with him for about 3 hours late last month. And the man's got an encyclopedic mind, in addition to the fact that he just, his feel for football and for evaluation is just tremendous. So, I went from Mayock, who I worked with for, I guess I want to say 14 years, till he took the GM job with the Raiders, to Ben, who worked with Mike before that. So it's been, both of them are just, it's been great working with Ben.
So you've taken that over to the 33rd Team, and you brought up obviously over there you have more of a league perspective. So, Jody and I were just discussing as the draft gets closer, but it starts with number 1, Jacksonville, and our old friend Doug Peterson. Not Doug, but I have no idea what Jacksonville is going to do. I mean, that is a goofy organization. So you have Ben at your disposal. Maybe you're still calling up Mike. What the heck is Jacksonville going to do? And then I can get some clarity. And I know you just did your edge rushers. Everybody tilts toward that, but some say Aiden Hutchinson, some say Trayvon Walker. You would think they might take a tackle because they have Trevor Lawrence. I can't get past number 1, Damo.
Yeah, and you're right. With that organization, who knows? I feel sorry for Doug. I mean, I think he's in an ideal situation from the standpoint of the expectations down there and the fan base. They're not going to put the kind of pressure on him that he had here, and yet he's working with an organization whose personnel department is a mess, who's made some curious decisions over the last several years. So you never know. As much as I think it'll be Hutchinson, I still think it could be one of those tackles. Evan Neal or the kid whose name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, none of us can. The North Carolina State kid. Jody, can you do it? We'll throw it.
Not
to
a
Jody.
prayer. I'm not going to take a chance. I'm smarter than that. I'm
But
still trying to. Let's test Damo. the defensive end from Penn State that
you got to do that. We got to do that.
Can
So
you give me
early in the
his
morning.
last name?
Yeah.
Oh, forget it. And since I'm not looking at it,
I could say Halapoli Bati Baitai. How's that?
Repetition makes everything
repetition.
correct. All right, here's the question I got for you, Damo. We were just talking about the Eagles potentially trading up to 3. We know the Eagles have already made a big deal with New Orleans to get a future first-round pick. 8 different teams have multiple picks in the first round. I don't remember that ever happening before. You're a better NFL historian than I. You can either confirm or deny. Is that going to lend itself to that much more fun on draft night because teams have 2? That means there's a whole bunch of teams that have none. Are they going to be that desperate to get back into the first round? How does this unprecedented kind of grouping of picks lend itself to activity by the time we get there 15 days from now?
Well, you would think it might mean more trades. I mean, teams that with multiple picks that have the flexibility to trade, that have, things that people want. At the same time, I don't think the Eagles are going to move forward. I think there's a possibility Howie could end up moving backwards, not very far, but enough that if he can pick up another second, depending on what's on the board when they're picking, I could see that happening. But with respect to your trade question, yeah, I think there are going to be more trades this year because of the multiple picks. And if you'll even look forward another year, I mean, next year, I think right now we're looking already at 5 teams in the first 5 teams that have multiple picks in the first round next year. And I think it's all for the same reason as the Eagles. All of those teams are teams that could be looking for a quarterback. Detroit, even Miami with Tua. I don't think they're completely sold on him. The Eagles, Seattle, I forget who the 5th team is, but it's another team that might need a quarterback. So, this year the trading up and down is not going to be for a quarterback. It's going to be, if there's trading up, it'll be for an edge rusher, could be for one of those tackles, depending on if one of them slides a little bit. But I think Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis, boy, I just, nobody seems to know where they're going to go. You talk to NFL people, most of them don't even have first round grades on these guys, but teams are so desperate for quarterbacks in this quarterback driven league that, as we've seen in the past, they push up guys. So we'll see.
All right. I think, a couple things. I did have to look at it. I'm going to say Ikem Ekwonu from North Carolina State. I had to look at it though, Donna. Ekwanu's not that bad. It's the first name. It's Ikem. So I don't know.
Ikem.
You can go a number of different ways with that. But you bring up, so let's go back to the trade. I think everyone looks at, New Orleans saying, what the heck is Mickey Loomis doing? Tremendous from a valuation standpoint from Howie, that's what he's good at. But your first thoughts after the trade, I mean, mine were, they don't believe in Jalen Hurts, no matter how many times they trot up there and say that. Is there any other way to think about it? Then they just don't trust the quarterback.
I think they want to believe in him, John. But you're right. They don't right now. They don't know what to think of him. They're hoping he's going to improve. All indications from his history is that he's going to improve, but how much? Is it going to be enough for them to be convinced at the end of this season that, he's our guy going forward. We found our franchise quarterback. Or are they going to have to dip into that draft, which is why they pushed a first-round pick forward to give them the insurance policy. So, but you're right. Right now, they don't have full confidence in him. They want to, but they don't. I mean, it's like, it's like you want to love somebody, but and you're trying, but he hasn't quite given them the reason to truly believe. For all the good things he did last year, there are other things that you don't know whether he'll ever get the hang of it. The anticipation, the accuracy, things that you absolutely need as a quarterback in this league, and that he has to prove to them this year that he's developed.
Damo John, just rightfully so, gave Howie Roseman credit for the deal he made with New Orleans. He almost always seems to win the deal and has a great grasp on valuation. So we give Howie credit for what he's done before when he deserves it. And we also question what Howie's done before when he deserves it. Well, one of the long-lasting Howie Roseman trends, and even more importantly, Eagle trends predating Howie Roseman, is offensive line. They've always believed you got to build it from the inside out. How far are we going to have to wait until Howie Roseman says, I got to get back to basics? Are you kidding me? I've made 3 picks and I haven't taken an offensive lineman yet. We have to take an offensive lineman. It is the strength of the team. That's where their highest level talent is. That's where their best depth is. When you got both of those things going for you, it means you don't need anybody there. But they won't be able to help themselves, will they? When are they actually going to take their first offensive lineman? And could Howie actually do it with one of those 2 first-round picks?
I don't think he'll do it with one of the first 2 first-round picks, Jody. But what do they have? 5 in the first 101 picks. I think one of those picks, maybe the 4th or the 5th of those picks, could end up being, depending on who drops, somebody will slide. I mean, they do. You're right. They do have plenty of depth along the offensive line, but their attitude has always been you cannot have enough. I mean, Kelsey's going to retire probably after this season. Lane Johnson's 32, 33. So it's not like you can't continue to stock up. So I think if there's somebody there they like in the late 2nd, 3rd round, I would not be surprised, but I don't think it'll be with one of those first-round picks.
Let's say they stand pat in the first round, Damo. So they take 15, they take 18. You think it's just going to be, seeing how the board falls on draft night, or do you think the Eagles, everybody talks about need being the worst talent evaluator in sports, but if I said to you the Eagles are going to come out of the first round of this draft with one particular position, what position would that be?
In that first round?
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be defensive line, John. I mean, if I had to predict right now what those 2 picks will be, I would say wide receiver, defensive line, and not necessarily an edge rusher. I mean, if Jordan Davis is there at 15, I mean, it takes me 2 seconds to grab him. I don't know about but I have no idea if that's what Howie thinks. But the interior line is maybe even more important to them than edge rusher. Quarterbacks are in this league can step up and step away from edge rush pressure. You got somebody that can up the middle, especially a guy like a 6'6", 341 sun blotter like this guy. I mean, everybody looks at him and thought he was just a run stopper. Then he goes and runs a 4.73. He played in a Georgia defense that basically had their defensive linemen move out of the way for the linebackers. I mean, they occupied the blocks, and their linebackers, who all ran sub 4.4s, I think, were the guys that made the plays. Well, this guy can get upfield. So, I mean, I think Jordan Davis would be an excellent choice for them. But I think there's going to be a few defensive linemen, edge rushers and interior, that'll be on the board at 15 and 18 that they'll take one of them.
I'm glad to hear you saying that they're going to take a wide receiver with one of their 2 picks, because I think they desperately need an upgrade. Sorry, Zach Pascal, at the wide receiver position.
What about the Olympian? Come on, Jody.
Okay. Are they going to actually put hurdles on the field when the game is played next year? If that's the case, that's a hell of a signing by the Eagles, but that's a very much a wait and see play. I think they need an upgraded wide receiver, because there was some really talented wide receiver that changed teams this offseason, Damo, with Adams going to Vegas and a Hill going to Miami, even a Robert Woods going from the Rams to Tennessee. And in all 3 cases, the receivers seemed to have had some sway, even though they were all trades. They were able to influence where they were going to be dealt. And John kept telling me, well, they're not coming here to Philadelphia because the Eagles don't throw the ball enough. They run the ball too much. They're all worried about their numbers, and they're not going to get their numbers here in Philadelphia. which is probably accurate, but how do you change that narrative? If that's the case, if John's got the right evaluation on it, which I think he does, how do you go about getting the egg before the chicken and get a superstar wide receiver in here so that you can become a passing team, which we all believe the Eagles would actually prefer?
Well, one of the most notable things about all the wide receiver movement and even guys and wide receivers that ended up staying during this offseason has been the contracts they've gotten. I mean, it's just obscene what wideouts now are making. And that's, I think, a factor with the Eagles because I don't think they're ready to pay that kind of money to a wide receiver. Although they were in the Calvin Ridley sweepstakes until he got caught with his hand in the gambling jar.
DraftKings app is tough, man. They give him a free plug.
But I mean, I think they would prefer to get another draft pick, like they get another wide receiver in the draft, like they did with Smith, where you've got him for at least 3 years under a rookie contract. So that's why I think it's this is a deep draft wide receiver wise in the first and second days. So I think they can definitely get one. Now the question is, we've seen Howie's hit rate on this. It's not good. So whoever they pick, there's going to be some skepticism. But it's a good, there should be some good receivers there at 15 and 18. If I had to guess, I don't know what happens with Jamison Williams, the kid from Alabama. He may be the best wide receiver in the draft, but he's coming from a major injury. Does Howie want to go that route again if he's there? I mean, he did that with Sidney Jones and it blew up in his face. So I think that would scare him off enough that it wouldn't, even if Williams were available. I think a guy like Treylon Burks would seem to be a perfect pick for them. A 6'3", 225-pounder that they could team with Devonta. I'm still not sold on Quez Watkins. He's kind of a specialty player. I mean, a nice guy to run down the field and catch a deep ball once or twice a game. But, you need more productive receivers that can help Jalen Hurts, become a better quarterback. Guys that are going to catch slants and those kind of passes that they're going to improve his production on third down and in short situations. So
here's my concern with Burks, Damo. And you mentioned the contracts, and Deebo Samuel's probably the one player. He woke up evidently and said, "Oh, everybody's getting this. Let me get in line." So now San Francisco's starting to have some issues with Deebo. And to me, Deebo Samuel, I say it all the time, he is my favorite player in the NFL right now. He is so fun to watch. I love everything about him as a player. But I question if he were to come to Philadelphia. I've never seen any evidence that this team can use a player like that. Is Kyle Shanahan coming with them? And that's sort of the mold of Treylon Burks, who's going to be that manufactured touch guy, along with being a receiver. I don't want to dip, but I've never seen them, and this is going back different regimes, obviously, being able to take advantage of that type of player. And they were supposed to have one in Jalen Reagor. So kind of a two-parter. Why not just stick with Alabama? Take the kid. You mentioned Sidney Jones, but they took Landon Dickerson. He was injured. He worked out.
Good point.
Let Nick Saban do the developmental work. Bring in Jamison Williams. And, then Jalen Reagor. I want your percentage of May 1st is Jalen Reagor on this team. Give me a percentage.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he's going to be thrown into some draft day trade. But it's not. It's going to be like for a bag of balls. He's not going to influence a big trade. But they've got for his sake and theirs, he needs to be out of sight, out of mind. So I think in any trade talks they do on draft day, they're going to say, "Hey, how do you feel about Jalen?"
I want to flip it to the other side of the
real
ball
quick, Jody. The manufactured touch thing. Why do you think this team has not been able? I mean, it's all over the league, and they just can't seem to figure it out.
Yeah, and a couple of years back, I mean, they understood that this was going to be a bubble screen league, or is a bubble screen league, and that's one of the reasons they got Reagor. They thought he could be that guy instead of Justin Jefferson. I mean, that was one of the many reasons they thought this was a better move. And yet, every time they ran a bubble screen last year, it was like,
it was torture.
Early on, they seemed to work a little bit, and then, it's hard to explain. They've got they've got an athletic center, athletic tackles that can get out there. They've got some decent wide receivers that can block. So I don't know why that part of their offense didn't work, but it's if they bring in somebody like Burks or Williamson, they've got to. I mean, it's going to be up to Sirianni and his staff to find a way to get these guys to produce for Hurts, or vice versa, for Hurts to get the ball to them.
All right, Damo, I want to flip it over to the other side of the ball for a second and ask you a defensive question. There are three groups of individuals who I try and track when looking at someone with the Philadelphia Eagles and how they're perceived elsewhere. Number one is, how are they perceived across the league by other organizations? How are they perceived by the fan base here in Philadelphia? And how are they perceived, most importantly, by the other players around the league? And the guy I'm targeting here is the defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. I just asked you about how the Eagles are looked at as a team for a potential wide receiver to come in. How do you think other players around the league, free agents that are out there still, Honey Badger, Stephon Gilmore, Jarvis, those are the two defensive guys. How do you think Gannon is perceived by the other players? We seem to believe that he's perceived quite well by all the other teams in the league. He got an interview as a head coach 1 year into being a coordinator. That's a pretty good jump up, as a matter of fact. We know that there are mixed emotions about him with Eagle fans here in town. Some like him, some can't stand him a little bit. How do you think Jonathan Gannon is looked at by players out there in the league, most specifically free agents, who the Eagles should be trying to at least see if they can come in and get a good deal done with them?
Well, I think it probably depends on the position. Guys look at how. I mean, when they're a free agent, they're looking at, and they look at a team that's interested in them. They're looking at how that team would use them, and I think that's a situation with Matthew. Would be the situation with with any defensive lineman they've been interested in. When they sold Reddick on Philadelphia, well, they already had the advantage of this being his home. But I think they also said, hey, we're going to use you more as an edge rusher rather than off-ball guy. Although I think they will use him some like that. But so I think, I don't think people have had players have had enough of a. There's not enough of a book on Gannon for them to say this is what he's going to do with me, or with that where I don't want to go there because he's this kind of coach. They're just trying to figure out where they fit in. I mean, a lot of people criticized Jonathan last year at times because of the whole bend but don't break thing. I just felt early on he had no faith in most of his players, or he didn't know them well enough to know whether they could do the job. I think as the season went along, he found out which guys he could count on, which guys he couldn't, and started changing a little bit. So, I mean, I think he's a good defensive coach. I think he'll be a better defensive coach this year than he was last year. But again, it's going to come down to the talent he's got. They seem to be improving. They're better at linebacker from the moves they've made. It's going to, it's always about the rush. How much of a difference will Reddick make? Will Cox be any better this year? Cox is the guy that Gannon kind of clashed with. He's the guy that didn't like the way he was being used and complained about the time when he dropped off into coverage. I mean, Cox was just looking for people to blame for the fact that he wasn't playing very well last year. So those are the things I think from a free agent standpoint, they're just looking to see how they're going to be used in the defense.
One of the players that I think will be defined by that in this draft, Damo, and I don't think you and Ben have gotten to safety yet, but it's Kyle Hamilton of Notre Dame. Now, Jody and I love the kid. He can just play. But obviously, he didn't run well at the combine, didn't run well at his pro day either. And now there's talk that what looks to me like a top 5 talent, even with the position he plays, is going to drop a little bit. I don't know if he's going to drop to 15, but if he does drop to 15, would the Eagles even consider him? Because they go back and forth. One year they're hell-bent on measurables. You got to do this, you got to do that. Another year they're hell-bent on college production. They go back and forth, it seems. Maybe you're foreshadowing a bit because you guys haven't gotten to it, but have you talked about Kyle Hamilton, and what do you think about him as a player? And he can play all over, so that's why I got to bring it. You got to have a defensive coordinator that's going to use him. You just sit him back there and playing, single high. Yeah, you probably don't want him, but you're wasting that kind of talent. You think the Eagles have the ability to take advantage of it? You think they would consider Kyle Hamilton?
Well, I mean, we look at, this is the 7th rounder they took last year, but the kid from LSU, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Jacoby Stevens.
They tried to turn him into a linebacker. So, I mean, he's Gannon's receptive to, taking guys like that and finding ways to use them. I just can't imagine Hamilton sliding that far, but what if he gets to 12? Does Howie think about it like that? Like, I mean, they've made those kind of trades before. I think, I go back to Robert Bunkley and guys like that, where they'll do a trade to move up 2-3 spots to get a guy they really want. I don't think I'm one of the people that think he's not going to slide that far. But I think there's also some other factors. Where do they stand right now with Matthew? Is he going to be coming here? Do they think they've got a chance? If they do, then they've got him and Harris and Marcus Epps, and I don't know what Howie believes about Kayvon Wallace right now, but if he thinks there's still if he still thinks this guy can get better, do you then still go after a Hamilton if he's there? I don't know. I think the chances are slim of both him dropping that far and them taking him, but who knows? Last time I guessed right about the Eagles in the first round of the draft was when they took Carson Wentz.
Damo, we have talked a couple times already about the edge. One of the guys who's going to play some edge for the Eagles this upcoming year is Brandon Graham. And he's coming back from the major injury. He is not only do they need him to be productive, they need him to be a defensive leader on this team, because Rodney McLeod is now elsewhere, and BG wasn't part of that huddle last year, and Rodney took over a big chunk of the defensive leadership responsibilities. Well, that's now a void that needs to be filled, and I think Graham could do that, but he's got to be able to be on the field to do it. You've covered guys who are returning from injuries one year, coming back the next. Are there any telltale signs? Can we just take Brandon Graham's word that he's progressing nicely? We only get X amount of time to view these guys, and it keeps getting cut back, and they work out less than they've ever worked out before because that's the way they've collectively bargained it. How are we going to know what Brandon Graham is going to be able to bring to the table in 2022?
Jody, I don't think we know. I don't think Brandon knows. I mean, Brandon can talk as optimistically as he wants. He's not 26 anymore. He's not 28. He's 34?
Yeah, going to be 34.
24-year-old guys break down under the best of circumstances, let alone coming off a major injury. So, I mean, the chances of him playing 16 games this season and playing at a high level, I mean, I love Brandon, but the chances of that happening are of him being an elite player like he was before he got hurt and playing all season without getting hurt are minimal. So, they're going to have to watch his snaps. That's the only you got to do that with a 34-year-old guy coming off a major injury, and that's going to mean he's not going to be on the field as much. I think regardless, he's going to be a tremendous leader for them in that locker room. I think they've got to be a little bit, and I think Gannon will be a little bit more creative this year with moving guys around. Especially, let's say they get Jordan Davis. Then maybe you move Cox outside occasionally. Maybe you use Milton Williams on the edge more. You can do that kind of stuff when you've got a 341-pound guy lining up next to Javon Hargrave. So, and that would allow you to take some snap stress off of Brandon. But but to your original question, I'm not optimistic that he's going to stay in one piece and have a Pro Bowl season.
Yeah, 34 at that age, but anybody can do it. It's Brandon because he works so hard. Such a great athlete, but when you start to lose explosion at that position, it's got to be a concern, and that's why I think edge rusher is so important for the Eagles. But I'll end it here with you, Damo. I've been ending it here all week with people because I find it interesting. But follow Paul on Twitter at PDamo. The 33rdteam.com. He's doing his positional breakdowns right now with Ben Fennell. Those are great. The Eagles were bad on special teams last year, Damo. And Aaron Cepas, if it were an 8-game season, he was pretty solid. Problem is he plays 17 now. So the Eagles might need a punter. The best punter in a generation, Jody, I'm using that correctly. Generational talented punter. Would the Eagles ever consider it? I mean, they're a team that goes for it on 4th down all the time. So it's even less valuable than normal. But this kid's different. Day 2, any chance of a punter, Matt, or raise it coming to Philadelphia?
Well, they've got the 5 in the first 101, which gives them flexibility to be a team that thinks outside the box. It's an important part of their game. I mean, field position's big, and they've lost field position battles, game in and game out over the last couple of years. So I wouldn't put it past them, and I wouldn't criticize it if they did. I mean, if you've got a guy that you think can be a game changer, even if you are a team that goes for it a lot on 4th down, I would consider it.
All right, Damo, last one for me. I'm going to give you 2 pieces of information / opinion generated by yours truly, and I need you to put it into an Eagle perspective, okay? Daniel Snyder's in hot water. Congress is looking into him about irregularities with declaring income coming in from other teams and gate receipts and the like. We know he's already in hot water to begin with because of all the issues, sexual harassment and whatever with the team. The NFL is going to have to take a stance with Daniel Snyder. If it could go so high as to, say, forced to be sell a team like they did with the Panthers owner, so be it. But Daniel Snyder's, the water's getting even hotter in D.C. for him. And I saw a report today that the Giants are interested in Sam Howell, the UNC quarterback, another ACC quarterback who can't play. Good news, bad news for the Philadelphia Eagle on those 2 fronts. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that Daniel Snyder could get kicked the hell out of the nation's capital? And if Sam Howell, who, according to John, there are some people in the Eagle organization that like Sam Howell, if the Giants are the team that grabs him, is that good news or bad news for the Eagles?
Well, first point, I think it would be bad news if Snyder gets kicked out, because I mean the man's a complete idiot who's held that franchise down for 20 plus years. But I think it's a realistic possibility. You can mess with, you can do all the.
You can do anything, but you can't mess with the money.
The whole sexual harassment and stuff, and the league will act like it really is upset about that, but they're not upset. They don't care enough. But when you start taking visiting gate money away from teams, taking money out of Jeffrey Lurie's pocket, out of all these other guys' pocket, that'll get you kicked out of the league. And it's about I think they've got enough again. I mean, the body of evidence against him already is grown to a point where I think they're going to suggest he sell the team. With regard to Howell, I mean, I think Daniel Jones I'm not a big Howell fan, so I think it would help the Eagles because I think Daniel Jones eventually will be a good quarterback with the right cast around him.
You do. You like Daniel Jones, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I like him better than I like Howell, over time. So I think it would be a good thing for the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't like either one of them. ACC quarterbacks.
You
just
got
don't
that
cut it.
ACC bias. Come on, Joe.
Yes, I do.
Can't scout the helmet. Can't scout the helmet. That's what they say.
If there's enough helmets lined up that have cracked and broken, I say you can scout the helmet. Damo, always great. Did they take a break from work? I didn't hear one saw,
They're
one
doing a
hammer
good
in the
job
background.
keeping it
There was
quiet.
no issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
They heard you guys talking, and they said, "Oh, we got to."
Oh, this is important.
Yeah. Why am I doubting that?
This is important stuff. We hope the work goes well, though.
Thank you. They're working quickly. We're getting our house recited, and I thought it was going to be like 4 months before that. From experience on other jobs that we've had done, I thought it would take that long before they get out here. And they called like a week ago and said, "Hey, we'll be there Monday." So tomorrow will be their true test, though. We're babysitting our grandson, who's 8 months old, and I don't think he's going to take too kindly to the hammering, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, you had a couple of
Murphy's
babies
Law
today.
showing up tomorrow for you because
You betcha.
Damo, thanks, bud. We'll get you up as soon as the draft's over and done with. Get your analysis then. Thanks for leading into it with us today.
You bet. Care, guys.
Paul
Thanks,
Domowitch from Philly Mag and the 33rdteam.com give us some draft perspective, specifically Eagle draft perspective. All right, coming back, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, the Mac of Mac, Birds 365 guys. We'll get another mock guy up next hour. Ryan Wilson from CBSSports.com and CBS HQ will come on, give us some draft insight and info. We'll come back. I got a couple more things to run by my partner, John McMullen, next here on Birds 365.